Well, here we are, folks. The left liberal machine is melting down in spectacular fashion, not just in America, but all across the world over Trump's 2024 victory. And the fireworks are nothing short of dazzling. From the frantic social media threads to the pundits clutching their pearls on cable news, the message is clear. How could this happen? The answer, of course, is that while the left was busy lecturing America's voters on morality and creating the ultimate list of reasons why Trump voters are irredeemable, they forgot something critical. Simply talking to real, everyday Americans. And while I enunciate this piece today here, viewer, I want you to think of people all around the world and voters all around the world, because this isn't restricted to just America. For years, the left liberal ecosystem seemed to live in its own curated world. This was a place where anyone who disagrees with us is a racist, sexist, xenophobic monster. Wasn't just a hyperbole, it was practically gospel. Just look at the videos that have been coming out from America since Trump's victory. In this cozy echo chamber that I touched upon yesterday, they fed each other a steady diet of moral superiority and outrage. So naturally, when the left liberals presented themselves as the only correct choice in this American election, they assumed voters would thank them and simply fall in line. Well, spoiler alert, Americans, like voters everywhere, don't particularly like being patronized. Let's be clear. The left liberal campaign seemed to consist more of scolding and shaming people than actually addressing their concerns. The issues everyday Americans were worried about: rising costs, border concerns, education, their paychecks. They were brushed off as the talking points of bigots, with the media reminding voters that if they dared to entertain such ideas, they were likely falling down a conspiracy theory rabbit hole. This election cycle in America was full of what seemed like lectures about the threat to democracy. Sound familiar? And the soul of the nation. Sound even more familiar? Rather than addressing what voters wanted in their day-to-day lives. Instead of working to broaden their message, the left doubled down on the condescension and alienated voters with their moralistic tone. Phrases like historical justice and democracy at stake filled the airwaves in America. But the average US voter just heard, if you're considering Trump, you're a problem. While some on the left claim to be of the people, they seem to forget that their people actually include a huge swath of the country who may indeed be undecided or even learning towards the other side, towards Trump. The left bet hard that they could shame the swing voter into submission, assuming that Trump's flaws were so obvious that anyone with half a conscience would simply reject him. But lo and behold, voters are autonomous beings, not Twitter hashtags. For many, their choice wasn't about embracing Trump, but rejecting left liberal ideology that made them feel like they had no place in their own country. So here's the truth bomb that I offer to you, viewer. And like I said, this is not something that is restricted to America alone, but to elections everywhere. This wasn't a referendum on the goodness of Americans or even on Trump. It was a referendum on a left liberal culture that thought it was too morally enlightened to bother meeting Americans where they were standing. Trump's victory was a resounding clapback from voters who were simply tired of the endless lectures and labels, exhausted from being treated like the enemy for wanting a better life. For millions of Americans, this election wasn't about taking sides in a culture war that was being imposed on them, but about putting food on the table, securing good jobs, keeping their neighborhoods safe, and ensuring their children have a decent education. What was wrong with wanting that, the voters were wondering. But rather than address these practical concerns, the Kamala Harris ecosystem, the left liberal world, seemed more focused on policing language, introducing endless trigger warnings, and elevating identity politics over real material needs. For the average American voter, the endless parade of demands to conform to woke standards felt like a smokescreen that obscured any serious effort to address their actual issues. Instead of engaging, the left liberal class seemed determined to tell people what they should care about, as if pronouns mattered more than paychecks. Many Americans felt they were being villainized for not embracing a progressive agenda they didn't see as relevant to their lives. This is, after all, an era post the pandemic where the economy is everything. The more the left liberals pushed issues like non-binary gender identity and privilege checklists, the more alienated average voters felt. The left liberals treated issues like economic security, border management, and crime as unsophisticated concerns, trivial next to their own moral, righteous crusade. The woke left liberal agenda asked Americans to fixate on grievances that seemed abstract or manufactured compared to the very real challenges that families were facing every single day across America. For working families juggling bills and safety concerns, the left's obsession with social justice semantics felt like a tone-deaf scolding rather than real advocacy, and it poisoned the entire Kamala Harris campaign. The message from voters was loud and clear. Have you seen the numbers, viewer? They couldn't have been more emphatic. Voters weren't looking for moral policing. They were looking for solutions. So Trump's victory was as much an endorsement of the man as a rejection of the left liberals' tone. It was a pushback against an elitist culture that seemed to live online more than in the real world, one that talked endlessly about inclusion but excluded anyone who questioned woke orthodoxy. Voters saw through this shallow activism that prioritized hashtags over hard work and genuine empathy. They were tired of being told that wanting safety, financial stability, and a future for their children made them problematic somehow. In their eyes, this election was a chance to put the brakes on an agenda, an elitist agenda, a systemic agenda that prioritized symbolism over substance. And the left's meltdown, which you can see in video after video on social media, whether on TikTok or Instagram or elsewhere, is a fitting response showing just how out of touch this class has become with the people, the very people they claim to champion. This lesson extends far beyond America's borders, serving as a wake-up call to the left liberal political ecosystem worldwide, from Europe, certainly to India, to Latin America. The left liberal class has been pursuing a similar agenda that often prioritizes symbolic gestures over tangible solutions to pressing issues. So even if you think, why is Shiv Aroor talking about the American election when India has so many of its own problems? Well, we are an electoral democracy, and there are so many parallels and lessons to learn for political parties and political planners with the way America has voted in 2024. The polarization, the war of the narratives, wokeism, identity politics. If we sit here in India and think there are no lessons, nothing to observe, nothing to pick up, we're living in our own little echo chamber. People everywhere want leaders who listen to them, who prioritize their immediate needs, and who respect their values and cultural realities, rather than scolding and chastising them for not subscribing to a one-size-fits-all global ideology. And after a clean sweep in all 7 swing states that nobody predicted would happen, Trump won the US president election for a second term, handing Kamala Harris a shock defeat in one of the most remarkable comebacks in American electoral history. Kamala Harris formally conceded to Donald Trump today, urging Americans devastated by the result to not despair but to stay engaged and remain vigilant in the fight to protect American democracy. Even in defeat, it was more about symbolism rather than substance, showing that the left liberal class will perhaps never learn real lessons.
America gets ready for Trump 2.0 after the Republican leader won a second term in a historic election. It was a long night of celebrations for Donald Trump's supporters, as the Republican candidate picked electoral votes from across the country and swept the 7 battleground states.
It's a political victory that our country has never seen before, nothing like this. I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president.
His granddaughter, Kai Trump, posted a celebratory family photo on social media and captioned it, "The Whole Squad," which featured world's richest man, Elon Musk, in the frame. Musk's close ties to the president-elect were visible throughout the campaign, with Musk being a fixture at Trump's election night party at his Mar-a-Lago club in Florida. Many magazines and newspapers welcomed Trump with flashy headlines like "You are rehired," while others highlighted Trump's clean sweep. Meanwhile, at least 200 people gathered outside the Trump International Hotel and Tower in Chicago to protest Trump's re-election. Protesters were demanding an end to Israel's Gaza incursion. Trump, in his victory speech on Wednesday, had claimed he can end the war in a day.
But we had no wars. They said, he will start a war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. But this is also a massive victory for democracy and for freedom. Together, we're going to unlock America's glorious destiny, and we're going to achieve the most incredible future for our people.
Trump's rival in the election, Kamala Harris, in an emotional speech, acknowledged her defeat and urged supporters to keep fighting.
Now, I know folks are feeling and experiencing a range of emotions right now. I get it. But we must accept the results of this election. Earlier today, I spoke with President-elect Trump and congratulated him on his victory. I also told him that we will help him and his team with their transition, and that we will engage in a peaceful transfer of power.
President Joe Biden congratulated Trump and welcomed him to the White House. The Democrats have assured a peaceful transition of power, unlike 2020, when Trump had refused to accept the election verdict in Biden's favor. Bureau Report, India Today.
And the first official reaction from the Indian government to the big Trump victory in the United States elections. India reacts to the Trump 2.0 presidency. India seeks dialogue with the United States on the sticky issue of visas. Increasing Indian students in the United States is going to be a priority. Here's what Randhir Jaiswal, External Affairs Ministry spokesperson, has just said at his press conference.
हमारे बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट्स अमेरिका में है और ये तादाद बढ़ रही है। साथ ही साथ हमारा इनोवेशन का, टेक्नोलॉजी का, डिफेंस का इतना बड़ा इन्वेस्टमेंट का पार्टनरशिप है। हम चाहेंगे कि ये सारे मुद्दों पर हमारी उनसे अच्छी बात हो और हमारे रिश्ते और मजबूत हों। हमारे बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट्स अमेरिका में है और ये तादाद बढ़ रही है। साथ ही साथ हमारा इनोवेशन का, टेक्नोलॉजी का, डिफेंस का इतना बड़ा इन्वेस्टमेंट का पार्टनरशिप है। हम चाहेंगे कि ये सारे मुद्दों पर हमारी उनसे अच्छी बात हो और हमारे रिश्ते और मजबूत हों।
Milan Sharma is live with me to explain more on this. Milan, put this into context for us. What precisely have the issues been between India and the United States as far as H-1B and other visas? And why is the External Affairs Ministry now hopeful that things could actually get better?
Shiv, it's a very sticky issue because remember previously Trump has called the issue of the H-1B visas unfair to the US workers as well. Yeah. And there was a sense that, the issue would not perhaps have that much leverage with India. Remember, the H-1B visas, overall give an advantage to the Indian companies like TCS and HCL to send their employees to work in the US. But remember, in the past statement, months, Trump has said how it's been unfair to the US workers. So, during the Kamala Harris term there in the Biden administration, they didn't really change much regarding the H-1B visas, but it remains to be seen whether President-elect Trump is now going to touch that, and it is the expectation of the Indian government, of course, as said from the Ministry of External Affairs, that we will bring out this issue because it's very important for the Indian diaspora, Indian students as well, who look forward to going to the US. Shiv?
As far as trade and visas are concerned, Milan, these appear to be the only two issues on which there is a sense that there could be some, tough bargaining, tough diplomatic, wrangling between the two sides, even though largely the arrival of Trump in the White House is being seen as good news diplomatically for India. These two issues are going to be, are going to sort of really earn our diplomats their money in a matter of speaking, But the important thing to highlight to our viewers, Milan, at this point, and I wonder if you agree with me, is that India is also fully prepared to drive a very hard bargain because Trump knows that the Indian edge, as far as the people who go from here to that country and add value to that economy, is not something that he can ignore lightly.
Well, Shiv, I completely agree with you because India is, the skill base for a lot of these jobs that are required in the US, whether you talk about STEM research or engineering and, other technical know-how. Indians are at the top of their game and, even the US economy is propelled by the skilled labor that goes from here. Of course, the concerns that the US has raised with India is also that immigration should not be illegal. And of course, India also wants to send people to the US, via the legal route. And certainly when you talk about, the hard bargain on trade, yes, Trump has in the past spoken about how, Modi also strikes a very tough bargain when it comes to tariffs. And that is something that will also be a focus between if and when the two leaders, get together and speak. Apart from that, of course, it's been a very welcoming news for India that Trump has been re-elected and currently is President-elect US. So looking at the warm ties that India and US share currently, these are things that can be ironed out very swiftly between the two, powerful leaders, Modi and Trump. And certainly, the H-1B visa as well as the trade tariff talks will happen perhaps, when the leaders meet there, Shiv.
All right, and Trump expected to be an early visitor to India sometime next year. We'll, of course, have a confirmation on that very soon. But Milan, appreciate that input. Thanks very much. And also to tell our viewers that you can head over to the India Today website. We've got a fabulous detailed piece on the India-US visa issue. So you've got any queries, you can head to our website. We've got a full FAQ and a detailed piece on precisely how things could be resolved going forward.